The recent changes to the Going Home Staying Home reform, confirmed by the New South Wales government, can put the lives of women refugees at risk. Drastic changes to the homelessness service system has reduced 336 women specialist services to 149. Although the reforms have promised a 13 million increase in funding and greater access to homelessness services, they failed to meet the women specialist services needs. The Greens state member for Berlin, Jamie Packer, says the New South Wales coalition said the reform was destroying 40 years of advances that gave women safety and support at the very time they and their children needed most.
The reforms, when they were introduced, in particular in the inner city areas, reduced the total amount of funding, and the funding packages that were put out for tender meant that women's specialists, women-only, women's-run services couldn't actually apply for those tenders directly because the way they were written meant that they weren't able to qualify for those tender packages.
Gary Moore is the CEO of Homelessness New South Wales, a peak organisation with 170 member agencies that provide homeless services to those who are homeless or at risk of being homeless.
Before this reform process, there were about 250 organisations operating services across the state. Let's just say just over 70 organisations missed out, and out of those, about 30 of them have now been picked up under this sort of service support fund.
Manager and caseworker at Jacaranda Cottage, Chris Lee, says although they will be continuing to operate as a consortium with other local refugees, the government funding has been slashed even more.
In the Going Home Staying Home reform, Jacaranda was blessed enough to actually get a tender for this area, which is amazing and great news. But I guess in continuing as a consortium, the idea is that in your area, you're looking after the whole area. You're not just looking after your own little refuge. And so you get, like, your main organisation gets this money from the government to do this whole area.
The reforms have also had an impact on the police and domestic violence cases in the local precinct. One sergeant who did not want to be identified said in recent weeks it's been harder to find shelter for domestic violence victims.
One that I was involved in where a young couple of Asian Chinese descendants have come here, they're students, and he has gone to town on her, has absolutely assaulted her, covered her, beaten her up. I personally tried to pull rank and try to do whatever I can to talk to these refugees.
But armed with a positive attitude, Chris Lee is putting her own fears aside and keeping things in perspective.